Marine Air Artillery and Ground Forces, we killed around 40,000 Chinese during this 2-week battle. We wounded at least twice that many more. And cold weather really played havoc on the Chinese because they threw so many people at us at once. They just knew that in 2 days, or 3 at the most, they'd be back out, annihilate us, be back over into Manchuria, and all done. But we put up such a little bit bigger struggle than what they anticipated. Consequently, the further we got down that road and the more strung out they got, the more severe the frostbite was to them. And they suffered dearly. God only knows, they must have had 100,000 frostbite casualties in addition to the ones we killed. We finished this 2-week ordeal when we reached the seaport of Hainan. Next day we boarded ship, and this brought an end to the breakout of the 1st Marine Division from the Chosin Reservoir. Historians have now labeled this 2-week battle the most savage in modern warfare in relation to casualties sustained for troops involved. 12,000 casualties of 15,000 troops. There were 17 Medal of Honor recipients and 70 Navy Crosses awarded. The most ever for a single battle, and most people have never heard of it. Now, in conclusion here, or summary, I've got something, if I can find it, here it is. One of those Marines, one of these Marines that was wounded and flew out on that airstrip we weren't supposed to build, named Frank Gross. And while he was recuperating in a hospital, he wrote a little poem. It takes 4 minutes. And he, Frank wrote this poem, and later on he put a little music to the background. And this pretty well, in less than 4 minutes, describes a Chosin Reservoir, and I think you're going to like it.
Set for peace or war. But in history there's a chapter of a place called Valley Forge, repeated one December on the Chosin Reservoir. They had us all surrounded. I could hear them scream and yell. My feelings at that moment no tongue could ever tell. I saw the burst of mortar shells and the bullets around me flew as all my strength had left me and all my courage too. But with the breaking of the morning and just before the dawn, I heard the sound of bugles and the big attack was on. The cotton quilted uniforms against the bullet spray and the screaming, yelling banzai. They called the human sea. Baby faces bearded and chapped with heart and mud. Parkers that were dirty and stained with frozen blood. Here a bunch of youngsters who fought on to the end in the battle of the Chosin, where boys were changed to men. 12 long miles of convoy was headed for the sea, roadblocks at every turning, down through Coterie. The frostbite and the wounded and dead and dying too. No matter what the objective be, these boys were going through. The captain, he informed us, perhaps he thought it right, that before we reached the river, boys, we're going to have to fight. But we're going out like Marines in an organized withdrawal, and no matter what the rumors say, it's no retreat at all. We fought at least 9 hours before the strife was o'er, in the like of dead and wounded I've never seen before. But the everlasting promise kept along each bloody yard. The one leaves behind the wounded, 'cause there ain't no fight that hard. The chaplain collected dog tags in his hands was quite a few. There was Captain Smith, McCluskey's, and Corporal Bryan's too. And before we reached the river and fought our way back through, the sergeant had the dog bags, and he had the chaplains too. If I made you pause one moment and take a little time, then I know it wasn't just in vain that I put these words to rhyme. For there's just too many people who take it all in stride, who hear these tales of battles and then cast it all aside. But the nights are cold in Korean soil, and the night's been cold before. And it's not so hard in your own backyard to be set for peace or war. In history there's a chapter, and they called it Valley Forge, was repeated one December on the chosen reservoir.
That's all I got. That's all I got.
Question?
Yeah.
I know when Carl Henderson was here last month, you know, and he kept talking about, you know, that it was so cold. He said you can't keep moving, you'd freeze to
That's
death.
exactly right.
I never asked him, you know, I wanted to, thought about it later, is how do you, during that time, you gotta sleep sometime, how do you do that?
You just think you do. You can do some amazing things when people are shooting at you. Yes, you sleep. You get down in a sleeping bag. In a perfect world, if you put it down a bed of straw, you strip down to your long johns, you get in the sleeping bag, you zip it up, you put a towel over your face. That's in a perfect world. And the only thing that's going to keep that sleeping bag warm is the heat from your body. Now, when people are shooting at you, you cannot, well, you can get undressed if you want to, but I ain't going to. When people are shooting at you, you can't do it. So the best you can get is wrap the sleeping bag around you, zip it up, and pray, because, and you get a few winks. You stand 50% watch. Now, they gave us snow packs, not thermal boots. You put, it comes with two sets of inner soles. When you walk, your feet sweat. And if you stop, your feet freeze. So you got to take the wet ones out, stick them down your drawers, inside, zip it up with the dry ones in. And the next day when you walk, they get wet, you get, keep rotating them. That's the only. And if you don't do it, you're going to lose your toes. Plain and simple.
I think to tie your story to history, I know others in this room here, 30 years ago, the 2nd Brigade, the 130th, from right here, Urbana-Champaign, they were tasked as infantry backup to go to Korea. And as a consequence, we had what was extensive winter operations instruction, and we went through all this stuff and getting ready as a direct result of the lessons learned at Chosin Reservoir. Today, that's still an active war, and the medical command that oversees would go in as a 330th Medical Brigade out of Fort Sheridan. So the tie to Illinois as far as the defense of Korea and the fact that even though we're not shooting there every day, it is still a hot war.
Indeed it is. There was never...
And I think people need to remember that. So people are still getting caught, still getting killed over there all the time.
There never was a peace treaty signed. It was only a ceasefire.
Right.
And Korea could start up tomorrow morning, and it could. And the way the North Koreans operate, and a few things our president is doing. Everybody's got I probably shouldn't say this to do this. Everybody's got a pencil. Write down this name. Right? Take it home with you. I know you all got computers. I'm not going to say anything about it. Just write this name down. And you Google this or whatever you do. I don't have a computer. I got a push button telephone. I thought that was going to be the end of the line. You're going to write down one name. Larry Sinclair. Lawrence is his name. He goes by the name of Larry. Larry or Lawrence Sinclair. You look that up, and you'll find some things out about your president. and Rahm Emanuel. Need to read. Larry Sinclair also has a book. I've got the, when we're done here, we got these books. This nice lady will fix you up with any of these books if you want. They're only $5 each, and we do good things. Yes, ma'am.
Sir.
Well, there was a man behind you. I'm sorry.
Did the Army ever get their trucks back, or had you already repainted?
That's mentioned in my book. When we reached the seaport of Hainan, we loaded all the equipment we could, and we blew up the rest so they would not have one single item left for the enemy. And when we got to Mason, that was the rest area, those trucks, an Army, I don't know what you'd call him, a supply officer, I do believe, came up and mentioned that we had some of their trucks. And my regimental commander, Colonel Chesney Puller, some of you may have heard of him, Colonel Puller said, "You're damn right we got your trucks. Now they're painted green, and if you want me to, I'll go tell MacArthur how we got them." You run off and left them. But that's a good point. They did not get their trucks back. They were painted not olive drab, but marine green. Any other questions?
There's a difference between olive drab and marine green?
You better believe there is. That's about all I got.
Thank you.
I want to personally thank each and every one of you guys for the job you're doing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you
As
very
long as
much.
we're keeping it, as long as we're keeping our rifles and our weapons, I think there are what, 80 million gun owners in the United States.
With about 300 million guns.
That far exceeds Obama's Acorn group.
Yeah, we can shoot better too.
Thank you. Don Gwynn.